Yes, this is Tony González, and today we are talking to Mark Zonder, who has a new band called A Thru Z, and the name of the new CD is A Thru Z. Can you see the zebra with the apples right back there? This is the CD cover. Okay, hello, Mark, how are you?
Very good, thanks. I really appreciate your time.
You are involved in different bands, but I think that A Thru Z is your band. Now, what marks the difference among A Thru Z and the rest of the band where you are an active member?
I mean, this is the actual only band that I am in. The only other band that, was my band was Slavior, I think back in 2007, it was started the same way. All the other bands I've actually either joined or there's been certain project kind of things from Frontiers like Spirits of Fire and different things. But this is my true band. This is what I do every day. I've been driving the bus on this from the beginning. My idea, my direction of where we're going. I've got great guys with me, but it was my vision to start with. I got in contact with Vivian and we kind of went from there and added the pieces. I always had the idea of doing exactly what we're doing. More of a commercially based mass appeal, big songs, big hooks, big choruses, just to be, to appeal to more people is what it was. So this is what I'm doing. I do a lot of work for other people, recording drums, a lot of people, solo artists to bands. Some bands have records, some are just doing demos. I do a lot of that work, but this is the only band that I'm in.
Even when all the songs are more commercial, 4 or 5 minutes, some of them are still prog rock or prog metal.
Well, I knew when, besides myself and the other players that I brought in, that element was going to come out. It's just because you have guys that are very good players. But we were always really focused when writing the music on vocals. Where's the vocal going to go? Okay, we're not doing 12-minute songs. They're not big lead sections. And what's really amazing is we wrote this music thinking the vocals were going to go here and here, and this would be a musical part. And then we just gave it to Ray. I said, do whatever you want. And he sang in spots where we didn't think there was going to technically be vocals, but that's the real magic of this band, is everybody's putting in their own parts and very little is being taken out, or very little is saying, no, you can't do that. Obviously, arrangements have to be made and, okay, let's go 4 times, not 8 times, but everybody kind of brings their parts in. And that's kind of the magic. And especially when we gave it to Ray, what you're hearing on that record is his first ideas. We didn't go back and do them again and, oh, change this, I don't like this. It was just very magical the way the vocals just came to be and the way he did that. And then, again, I think that is the beauty and the magic of the band. You just have, you find 5 guys that are really good and you just let them do what they do.
Yes, for example, Trial by Fire, the first track, is a very good song and a single that you released recently. But I thought that the commercial will be at the beginning. They're more complicated and finished with maybe a song that is complicated, but no, the closing track, The Silence Broken, is a very catchy song. It could be another single. Are you thinking to release more singles in the future?
Absolutely. This record was put together, and that was probably, it's a good problem to have, to go, well, which songs are we going to release? And then in which order? And there was thought and theory behind the whole thing. The idea, okay, the first song you ever put out, you don't want to have any kind of prog to it because you don't want the audience to go, oh, it's just a Fates Warning cover band or whatever, or it's just another prog band. So that's why we went with the Machine Gunner, which was basically Van Halen meets Iron Maiden, 3 minutes and 33 seconds, great hook, great energy. I wanted to show energy. Obviously, Trial by Fire, the big song, but yes, we're actually planning on doing a video for every song. So every song is going to be released with a video one way or another. So that's the way we're going to get the music out. And It is I think the strength of the album are the 11 songs, not just one song and not another song. It's when people, they get the record and they have the artwork by Hugh Simon, they have it in their hands, and it just goes song to song. It's kind of like a musical journey. It's not a concept record, and it's nothing like that, but it goes back to the 70s and 80s where you just got these great records, song to song, where put you in a different state of mind, a different place. It wasn't the same song over and over and over again. So yes, that actually is one of I always thought The Silence Is Broken was going to be the one that didn't get a lot of publicity, but it's going to people are going to love. It's just a feel good song. I see it in a live context as well. I see a big crowd, that groove, it's the groove, and it makes you feel good. And that was another point of the band. I didn't want to do dark, doom, gloom, end of the world, kind of stuff. So it was definitely, we kind of knew exactly what we wanted to do.
From the far side of the horizon, I imagine that most of the songs were written from the drums, because almost all of them start with a drum beat, very different, and things like that. Am I wrong?
No, you're correct. It's the same. I do a lot of recording by myself, and I'm just coming up with constant ideas. It's being creative, and I'm just recording and recording. I always thought it was easier for someone to take my pattern and write a song to it than me to try to take my, crazy drumming and shove it into someone else's songs. So I always wanted to start with the drums. So, I mean, if you look at that, yes, a lot of the songs started with the drum idea. Vivian came up with a basic part. The keyboard player came up with a basic part. And he also, when him and I are putting the songs together, he's really good at using his keyboard for guitar sounds. So it's not like he's a composer. He's not a keyboard player. He's a composer. So he's thinking guitars and stuff. So him and I put the songs together basically, where then I would send him back another part that would fit with what he just came up with, but maybe a different feel. So that would be the verse maybe, or here's like a musical part that we can get a little crazy for 4 bars. So yes, the drums definitely are the driving force, I guess you could say, because it's my creative outlet. But, at the same time, Jupe, the guitar player, came in with a couple different riffs that we turned into songs. The song Window Panes, Viv wrote a long time ago, and we kind of took it and we changed it around a bit and stuff like that. So, everybody was getting in on the writing, and songs like, the Machine Gunner in the very beginning with the bass. I told Philip, I go, just go crazy, do whatever you want, and just be creative. I'm just looking for people to be creative. I think you find the best people you can find, whether it's the musicians, the artist Hugh Syme, the video editor Chris Grosso. You just find the best people and let them do what they do. You don't tell them what to do, just do what you do. And that's what the result's been.
I read that you were looking for a singer, but nobody matched with your musical idea. Tell me, because this is the story of your life, looking a singer that never appears. So yep. What kind of singer were you looking for before finding Ray Alder?
Just someone who got it. But I knew from a business point of view, I could find the greatest 25-year-old singer that you've ever heard. But if no one knew who he was, the record labels weren't going to care. So I was talking, Phil Ahart, drummer of Kansas, is a good friend of mine. He's helped me kind of manage the band as far as like a mentor, because he's managed Kansas for 40 years. So telling me like, I talk to him all the time. He turned me on, to a couple guys, like that audition for Kansas and, that kind of thing. Just looking for, a melodic commercial hard rock singer. It has to be a voice that everybody's going to love. It can't be a specialty voice where only certain people like it. It was more important, as well as the voice, that I was looking for a singer that could write the lyrics, write the melody lines, and contribute from his point. I've always thought a lot of times where the singer is singing someone else's stuff, it doesn't come across as well. But just looking for a really, really commercial, pleasant voice, you know, something that would fit with what we do. And when people heard it, it would sound like the voice is part of the band, not here's the band and here's the voice. So that was very important. I sent it out, 20 different singers, some, you know, with big names, some that you never heard of, and just no one was even close. Just, you know, I would tell somebody, hey, I'm looking for a hit song. I'm looking for a big chorus. Here's the music to Trial by Fire. I think you can tell where the chorus is. It's a big hit. And they would turn stuff back in that was kind of like some kind of prog epic record, you know, with the guy singing really low. I mean, it was, no, it wasn't working. So, but yeah, it was difficult. Like you said, it's the story of my life, you know, and the one guy that I ever came across, you know, that I love was Grahan, and he passed away. So it's the story of my life. Yes, you're absolutely correct. It's the story of my life.
Yes, and before the lockdown, Ray Alder settled down here in Spain.
Yep.
Where is he now? It is a problem in terms of recording, that if he lives in Spain, still live in Spain?
No, he's in Spain. Vivian's in France. And, you know, the guitar player Jupe is in the Netherlands. So no, it's not a problem with, as long as you're working with guys who know how to work their music, the digital audio, you know, their workstations and sending files. It's actually easier. I find it's easier if you find the right people. It's easier because you can make ideas move really quick. The thing I don't like sometimes when bands get together and jam and kind of go that way is everybody gets stuck on that first idea. Okay, that's good. That's fine. Let's move on to something else. Where what we're doing is really refining it. And every time, you know, I'll send Viv an idea. Like we're working on something right now. I sent him an idea. He came up with a part and I said, okay, that's a cool part. But now you inspired me to do something else, you know, to go somewhere else with it. So I like it. I like the way that works, but no, there's no problem at all. It's everybody has nice little recording setups. So it's actually easier that way sometimes, you know. You don't have to be in a rehearsal studio. You don't have to worry about how loud it is. And, you know, you can work. I mean, if you and I are talking here, there's no different than that working with the guys in the band and being able to put ideas back and forth. So no, it works out really well. And I'm so used to that from the Fates Warning days to, you know, so many projects that I do and so many recordings that we do. I mean, it's so much nicer now. I mean, in the old days, I would literally take my phone and it wasn't even a cell phone then, it was a regular phone, and I'd put it up to the speaker so Jim could hear the different drum parts. So it's come a long way.
So I think that you have resources. Yes, Mark.
Yes.
You know how to do the things correctly.
Yes.
Yes. And in some songs, I imagine that you use an electronic kit. For example, Runaway. And am I right? Does it mean that you are not a purist of the traditional beat drum set?
Well, no, it's funny you say that. Two things. Number one, there's nothing programmed or sequenced on this record. For a long time, and starting with Fates Warning, I'm playing a drum set, but I incorporate the electronics. You know, songs like Life in Still Water, The 11th Hour, The Road Goes On Forever. Everything I do in a recording sense, I'm thinking, okay, you're going to go play it live, so you need to be able to play it. If you look at my drum set, I play a very small drum set. It's only 4 drums. Okay, 1 rag tom, 1 floor tom. I have my electronic pad, and I have a couple triggers that I play. Like in Runaway, that I play on the pads with the real hi-hat at the same time. The beginning groove on Far Side of the Horizon, there's the drum things going on where I'm moving my hand to the pad here and to the pad here. All that is played live. I've always just looked at the electronic stuff as more sounds. You know, you can only get so many sounds out of a rack tom. Boom. Okay, that's it. You know, the bass drum, how many sounds can you really get out of a bass drum? It's a great sound, but it's one sound. With the electronics, I can do whatever I want. I mean, the beginning of Rise Again, that whole pattern is me played, just turn this way on my pad with the hi-hat, so I can do it live and play it live. So yes, I love that kind of stuff. I incorporate it. A lot of things on that record that people will hear, they might think it's keyboards, but it's not. You know, it's me with the drums and different samples and different sounds and different ideas. You know, that kind of thing. But no, I like putting the two together. Absolutely. It just it gives you more sound opportunity.
I have seen that you don't like the double bass drum. You play it maybe 30 or 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But in borrowed time, there are a very fast bass drum part at the end of the song. I don't know if you remember.
Oh yeah.
I assume that you play double bass drum. Am I right?
It's a double pedal.
A double pedal.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, that's one of the few times on the record that I do that. Most of the other stuff is just single bass. But that with the really quick, no, I know what you're talking about, the ending. Yeah, it's moving pretty quick. The rest of the album though is single kick. But that one definitely worked, you know, for the double kick during that part. I spent a lot of time, you know, back in the early 80s, just sitting there with two bass drums, practicing. I just, you know, like I do on everything I record, when I record, I'm thinking what it's going to sound like in the speakers for the listener. And I purposely play certain things that'll work out that way. The double bass thing just got carried away. You know, it makes so much noise down low that it covers everything up. It makes it very tough to play other things. There's kind of a time and a place, but I know there's a lot of musicians or drummers that just rely on it all the time for everything. I kind of went the other way. There's so much more to do and to play and be creative and make it groove without doing that. It just got boring after a while. It's just boring. You know, certain song actually dictate it, but I found as I was getting older, I could be more creative and still get that same, you know, train feeling, still get that running feeling, that moving fast feeling, doing it other ways. I mean, song like, you know, the Machine Gunner and stuff like that, all those parts are just single bass. Some guys would have played double bass through that because it's kind of that up tempo kind of thing. But I like the air and the space when you're not doing that. It just really makes it breathe a lot more.
I think the same as you. So when you here in Europe, there is a lot of drummer that has a continuous double bass. I imagine that the drummer imagine that he is running ton, 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 all the time. Say, to me, is the most boring part of the music, but maybe I'm wrong because
no.
I see on the concert that all the people like.
No, you're absolutely correct, and especially from a drummer's point of view. You know, the other one I see all the time is because they're doing that. Not a lot of rock drummers really have a well-developed left foot playing the hi-hat. You know, they just kind of leave it sitting there if they're not doing it. And you know, I was just taught completely different than that. And you always want to have, you know, your four limbs, two arms and two legs involved in your playing. And it just makes you sound, I mean, drums are all about rhythm and groove. And that when you're not using, you know, a quarter of your possibilities, you know, you're kind of losing a little something there. But no, you know, the double bass thing was cool, you know, but I think I just killed it to death. You know, Warlord, I used it a lot. Lucifer's Hammer, Child of a Damned, Penny for a Poor Man. I used it, but I tried to get away from it. I didn't get stuck in it.
The CD cover is very flashy, striking. Who got the idea?
Well, when I was looking to put the art together, I had different artists send me different stuff. And I knew with this band, like everything else, the plan was to be a lot different and stand out. You know, today in the music business, you need to stand out. So everybody was sending me the Dungeons and Dragons and cutting the serpent's head off and all that, you know, Viking stuff. And that wasn't where we were going at all. And so I decided just to call Hugh Syme. You know, Hugh did a couple of the Fates Warning records. Obviously, he's done all the Rush records. He's done like all the Dream, or a lot of the Dream Theater records, and just a really nice guy. And I just called him up and I was just talking to him, and not even about music or the bands. We were talking about his house project, you know, rebuilding a house or whatever he was doing, and my kids and whatever. And he said to me, "What are you doing musically?" And I told him, and he said, "What's the name of the band?" And I told him, and we didn't even really talk business. And we said, "Okay, cool." About 20 minutes later, he sends me over the cover. You know, he didn't have the logo done, but just the cover. And I thought to myself, this is brilliant. You know, this is perfect. It's different. And again, it goes back. You find people that are really good and you let him do, he knows what he's doing. So I'm not going to argue with him, tell him, well, you know, I really don't like this. Just let him go and do what he wants to do. And it's funny because there was people, and even some of the guys in the band and some of the guys that are around the band, that didn't like it. You know, they thought the teeth were too dirty on the zebra. And after it, but it's funny because Philip Bynoe says to me, he goes, "I would buy that shirt. I don't even care if there's a band." He goes, "The shirt's so cool. I would buy the shirt." And I just knew you work with someone like Hugh Syme, you just let them do what they do. And it's funny because now everybody tells me, "Oh yeah, Mark, you were right. Yeah, that just jumps out. That just stands out." And it's funny because now when you see it on Spotify or on any kind of press, it just jumps right off the page. You know, you see that a mile away, you know exactly who it is. There's going to be no question. So I loved it. I thought it was great. It was classic Hugh Syme. And he told me a funny story. He goes, "When I turned in Signals to Rush, the one with the fire hydrant and the dog," he goes, "they didn't get it." He goes, "They thought I was nuts." And he goes, and as it turned out, it's the most successful album cover he's ever done. So you work with guys like that. It's just great. And then, you know, he followed it up with all the other artwork. Did they send you the artwork? Do you have all the different pieces of art?
Only the cover.
Really? Wow.
Only this, the front cover.
Oh, no. That's just the beginning. He did the whole album. There's 8 or 9 different pieces of art in there. The back cover's done. No, it's Hugh Syme full. Again, I was going back for that kind of 70s and 80s full package. When someone would get it, they would open it up, they'd go through it. Oh, this song has this artwork. It gives you a certain presentation. The whole idea was just to come out like $1 million band, you know, big, you know, strong, you know, if I'm selling you something, which is what we're doing, we're selling, okay? The idea is to give you the biggest, best, fastest that I can give you. You know, if I was a food restaurant, I'd give you the best I have. I wouldn't give you the hamburger when I could give you the steak. That was the philosophy. I put my money where my mouth was, because let's face it, record budgets and video budgets aren't what they used to be. And when I saw Hugh Syme, I just said, we have to have that. There's whatever we have to do, I'm going to make sure that we do that. And the artwork's brilliant. Now you have to remember, okay, well, when it comes to merchandising, it's going to be fantastic. You know, it's like, it's going to be fantastic. When it comes to a live show and you need backdrops or screens or however they're doing it, you're good. When it comes to videos, you're going to see that. When you watch The Machine Gunner and you watch Trial by Fire, the artwork's in there. Like at the end, when you see the ants and the Zeppelin and the machine gun, the same thing with Trial by Fire, when you see the scales of justice kind of thing. He did amazing art. I mean, it's just, and it's classic Hugh Syme, where you start looking and you go, oh, I didn't notice that the first time, or, oh, look at that. So no, that I thought was brilliant. It just sets the tone. Okay, this is not some death metal band. This is not even really a prog band. This is just like a different band. And I thought that was really important. I thought it was really important to spend the money and have the full package instead of, you know, and I'm sure you've seen it. Hey, go to our website to see our pictures. You know, go to our website to see the album cover. No, I'm buying an album. I want an album cover. You know, I'm buying a CD. I want that. You're charging me a lot of money. I want that. So it was up to me and us to make sure that happened. So that's the philosophy of the band. You know, the same thing came down when it went to the mix. I knew the mix had to be fantastic. It couldn't be, hey, your record's great. The mix is, it's okay. Or let me listen to it a few more times. I couldn't have that. It had to be bam. And here it is. And so I sent it out to about 8 or 9 different engineers, spent the money, had to mix one song. And that's how we came down to who we used, instead of just giving it to the same guy that we always use, hoping for the best. So from the beginning, this was very well planned out, and what we're trying to do and how we're trying to get it across. It wasn't just a bunch of guys jamming, okay, let's make a record, and again, it comes down to, we had a small video budget, hey, at least we had a video budget. A lot of bands don't even have video budgets. But instead of doing one video, we figured out a way how to do 3 videos right off the start, because I knew one would get played and it would be done, but we have 3. We're also going to be doing videos for the rest of them, which will be happening soon. But at the same time, we all recorded, we probably have like 30, 1 or 2 minute interview clips of each of us, and we put them together with the zebra in the front and a hairy apple in the end, and just to develop the brand and keep it rolling. The label tells me that they're committed for a year to work the record. So we're going to do our part to make that happen.
There are 2 moments in your career that marks my taste for music. The first was Aliens from Warlord at The Canon of Destruction Has Begun, where the drums fill all the spaces. Tell me, what do you remember for this time?
I remember that Aliens was kind of that point from a drum point of view when it started getting not more progressive, but the drums were coming out a little bit more. I was practicing all the time, and I'd be that kind of guy when I came up with an idea, I'd put it right into the song as fast as I could. So those were great times. I mean, they were bittersweet. And the reason I say that is they were sweet because, it was Bill and I, and we were recording and we were listening back, and we were just so happy and amazed at what was happening. And then obviously, it was kind of bitter because at that time, no one really picked up on it. You have to remember, that was Rat, Motley Crue, Poison, those kind of bands. Everybody had to sign those kind of bands. Warlord wasn't like that, and again, we were plagued with a singer problem, and we were plagued with we can't go out and play problem because we don't have a singer, and we were particular. We weren't just going to go out with any singer. We knew we had to have a really good singer. And that was kind of the beginning of like real bands for me. I played in a lot of bands, obviously, before that, but they weren't like real bands. They never got to a national level. They never recorded records per se. No, that was great. I always say that Warlord was the could've, should've, would've band. It just, and there's a lot of other bands out there too. It's not just Warlord, but there's other bands that just missed. It just missed. I don't know why. But no, those were great times. I'll always remember those times. We were starving. We had no money. We were in a warehouse upstairs. It was 104 degrees. It was hotter than hell. And we'd just be cranking out Lucifer's Hammer. I mean, it was great. Not a care in the world, not married, no kids, just doing what we did, in the 80s. We were into it. It's our band. That's all that counted. No, it was great times. It was great times.
Yes. More recently, you tried to bring Warlord again alive. And then there was a musician for Hammerfall who helped you with the lineup. But this second revival doesn't work.
It's interesting. I'll never understand why that didn't work. I don't know if Hammerfall fans didn't get it. I don't know. I mean, let's face it, Hammerfall is influenced by Warlord tremendously. I would say. I think that would be tough not to acknowledge, considering that they covered Child of the Damned on one of the records, and I know Joachim was a big fan. I just don't understand why that didn't do well. As I remember, very difficult to get a record deal. No one wanted it, nobody wanted it. And I didn't understand that, because now all of a sudden we have a singer from a popular band. Okay, you know, the band was popular, very well accepted, same kind of genre, not like we took a, you know, a country singer and put him in the band. No one wanted it. No one did. And we wound up going with kind of like an independent guy. You know, it wasn't even really a label. I never to this day will understand why, you know, the songs on there with Joachim didn't go any, like, why didn't it happen? But what's funny is when you turn around and when Warlord was playing live, after that, people love those songs. So I don't understand. I just don't understand. You know, kind of the same thing with the Holy Empire. I thought the Holy Empire was a great record, you know, very well produced, classic Warlord sounds, but no one cared. That's what I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The second moment in your career that marks mine is the track Part of the Machine from Face Warning, Perfect Symmetry. Part of the Machine was already written when you entered the band, or maybe not all, but basically. How did you face the recording process of this song and the CD in general?
I look at every song exactly the same, whether you sent me a song or my son gave me a song, or if Richie Blackmore gave me a song, it doesn't matter. I look at it the same way. I sit and I listen, and the older I get, the better I listen. I'll tell you that. The older I get, the better I listen. And I listen to it, and I listen to different parts, and I just start working. I start trying to be creative with it. And that's all it was, you know. It was kind of Part of the Machine. That's an interesting song because obviously it's the first one when I joined the band that everybody kind of heard. And I think it was a big change from No Exit and the previous drummer, just the whole style and everything. But I was just bringing my style to it. And everybody talks about that song a lot. And to be honest, I really don't remember. I remember there's a lot of parts. That's what I remember. There was a lot of parts. It wasn't like just a groove song. And I just looked at each part individually and then figured out how to make it go smooth throughout the whole song. So yeah, that's an interesting song. You know, it just moves around all over the place. You know, the one I do really remember though is Through Different Eyes, off that same record. I do remember that one because that was kind of heading more to a commercial type of feel. And it had kind of like the big chorus in it where, you know, it kind of came together very fast. But no, Part of the Machine, you know, I know a lot of people talk about that. And that was a big change for Fate's Warning. If you listen to that song and then go listen to, you know, Anarchy Divine or whatever, you know, the other, you know, from No Exit, you know, there was a big change. When you formed part of Fate's Warning, you already were a polyrhythmic drummer. Maybe not in Warlord, but in Fate's Warning, yes. Were you working this style on purpose, or it was a result of your studies? It was just an evolution of me as a drummer. That's why I was kind of saying that when we got to Aliens with Warlord, it started to show a little bit more. I was just that guy that was practicing all the time. I would take drum lessons from like a guy that specialized in Afro-Cuban rhythms just to learn different things so I could incorporate it. You know, I would study out of different music books, you know, drum books. The drummer for Tower of Power, Dave Garibaldi, because that was a lot of linear sticking. Now, am I going to ever sound like him? No, but I can take some of his stuff and add it and make it sound like Mark Zonder and make Mark Zonder bigger because I'm applying different styles. You know, the thing I've learned with playing the drums after all these years, and I started when I was 7, is the more and more you learn, the more that you realize there's more to learn, and it just keeps opening up and opening up. And I'm kind of at that point now. It's not like I have to sit down and practice 45 minutes of double stroke rolls. It's more of just taking what's in my head and I can bring it out through my body. And when I'm doing that, then I start changing things up. Well, why don't you put the left hand over here? on this drum instead of hitting this one, or why don't you play 2 notes instead of 1 over here? So it's more of just this creative journey in my own head while I'm playing. And that's where all the not weirdness, but that's where the creativity comes into play. I never studied all those same books that a lot of rock drummers study that had certain fills and this is how you do this. And, you know, you've probably never heard me ever play on a record one of those, you know, tom-tom fills. I just, it's not my style, you know. There's a time and a place, and what anybody else does is fine. But I'm just looking at it a little differently. And I've learned to just trust whatever I feel, just go with it. You know, over the years, you know, using space and air has come into play. Dynamics, like, hey, on the first part, just kind of play really light, because on the second part, you're going to come in like a cannon. And if you're playing really heavy in the first part, the second part's not going to stand out. So it's being more of a musician, maybe, than a drummer, and applying those kind of musical ideas, and then orchestrating parts, obviously. So if you listen to the drum track, it would make sense. It flows from this part to this part. Oh, well, this part comes up and this part goes down. So it's not how many years you've been playing the drums, but how many hours have you spent, you know, and I love that, just to be able to do that, because every day it's like an advancement.
But Mark, why Afro-Cuban rhythms and not, for example, bebop or something closer?
Well, honestly, I tried bebop. I studied a couple books. And when I was younger, my first lessons for the first couple of years was all jazz, all jazz. It just never really stuck, you know. The Afro-Cuban thing is because I was always drawn to the rhythms. Bebop kind of thing is cool, and different ride patterns. It was a lot more difficult. You know, I actually sat down too and spent a lot of time trying to play open-handed, you know, where the left hand is kind of thing. And, you know, it's okay. But the Afro-Cuban really offered me a lot of stuff as far as just ideas. Well, the bass drum doesn't have to be on 1 all the time. You know, the snare doesn't have to be on 2, on 4, as long as it grooves, you know, as long as it feels good and everybody can understand, you know, what you're playing and do this, you're good. So it's just more vocabulary when you're speaking, more words to use. That's all. And it's just a constant, you know, practicing and exploring different ideas.
When you, there is a moment in your career, closer in this century, that you try to hide. I imagine that you tried to hide your style. And it was when you were playing with Grahan Bonnet, because you tried to play more like a common drummer, a hard rock or heavy metal drummer. However, even when you try to control a little your style, from time to time in the Grahan Bonnet Band, if you listen something that you are doing normal and then something that is you escape, don't you think that your personal style doesn't match with classic hard rock?
That's kind of why I started A through Z. I was going to redefine what hard rock is. You know, I was going to do it my way. I think you can have all the elements that people love in hard rock: big vocals, big choruses, memorable hooks, guitar leads, that kind of thing, with my kind of drumming behind it. The reason I played with Graham when I had the opportunity is I was trying, like you said, I wasn't trying to hide, but I was trying to get into a different, I felt like I'd kind of worn out where I was as far as a career. Like, where am I going? You know, who am I going to be able to play with? You know, I thought, hey, if you go and do something that's a little more hard rock like that, you know, maybe you're playing a gig and the Scorpions just happen to stop by and they're looking for a drummer, or to put you in a different area, because none of those bands, if Whitesnake's looking for a drummer, let's just say, they're not looking into, like, you know, Fates Warning, Dream Theater, Queensryche. They're not looking over there. You know, they're looking at what they know in those kind of bands over here that they've played with or been on tour with. So that was kind of the philosophy. Yeah, that was kind of a little bit of a rough one, because, you know, that band definitely did not get Mark Zonder. You know, I think the quote was, from one of the members that my drumming wasn't sexy enough. You know, it sounded like tennis shoes in a dryer or something. It was like, they didn't get it. You know, they didn't get kind of where I was coming from, you know? So it was, it's not that I was hiding. I was just doing what I thought would work the best in those songs, and still getting Mark Zonder in there, still trying to add a little flair that the listener goes, oh, that's kind of cool. Oh, wow, that's cool. Oh, I like that, Phil. That's not your standard Phil. Yeah, that was an interesting experiment. You know, it was interesting.
And what does really happen with the Slavior, the band?
Slavior, what happened was kind of the same thing that happens with a lot of my career. You know, unfortunately, that first record I thought was great. I thought the song Dove could have and should have been a big hit. There's no reason. But we did it with Inside Out, and they're more of a prog label, I guess. And the head of the A&R guy came to me after the record was done, and he said, hey, you guys got a great record. You've got a great single. You know, it should really go to radio, but we don't know what to do with it. He told me straight, we just don't know what to do with it. So any band will know it's very tough to keep rolling in bands when your label goes, you know, you do something great, you know, that you think is great and that should get out there, and they basically just kill it. They don't know what to do with it, which is fine. And it kind of just, you know, kind of dissolved from there, I guess. I mean, we have like, you know, I have like 15, 16 other songs that we basically did that were kind of in demo stage and like ideas and all kinds of stuff. But, you know, that's really tough on a band. You know, there was no touring opportunities. Oh, actually there was. I take that back. Inside Out came to us and asked if we wanted to open up for Dream Theater. I said, okay, that'd be cool. But then when they told me the amount of money of the check that I was going to have to write to be able to do that, you know, I decided to buy like 2 houses instead. You know, I mean, it was ridiculous. It was just like, you got to be kidding me. You know, no. And so, you know, I didn't do it, but it was tough. You know, it was tough. And then it kind of faded away, basically. You know, there are 4 songs that are floating around that were done, and, you know, they've been posted before on the internet and everything like that. But, you know, especially with Greg's passing, you know, and like Bill, I mean, those guys are such an integral part of the bands. We're not moving forward with that. You know, those are done.
When you mention the drummers you like, most of them are jazz drummers. Steve Smith, Dave Weckl, I imagine that is Vinny Colaiuta, Steve Gadd, Ainsley Dunbar. And tell me, how did they give you?
A lot of those guys play with amazing technique, which when I was young, you know, I was taught, but it reminded me the importance of the technique that's involved, that enables you. You have to, you know, playing the drums is physical and mental. And from the physical point of view, especially if you get older, you need to be physically able, you know, to play. So if you spend a lot of years, and this happens to a lot of drummers and famous ones too, that weren't taught the right way. And as they get older and they're out touring and stuff, the body just can't handle it because you've basically been abusing it for so many years. I was lucky enough to be taught the right way and had my lessons. But all those guys you mentioned, you know, Vinny, Steve Smith, you know, are all, you know, trained, you know, like the right way. They're kind of jazz drummers, but they play rock, you know, same with Dave Weckl. What they also gave me was showing how the drummer could be a little freer. You know, the drummer could not have to just go boom, tap, boom, tap, boom, tap, da, 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 boom. You know, all those guys are tremendous. They've taken the drums out. They've kind of, you know, and I followed them in the respect of whether it's the practicing or just the mental thought of like pushing the envelope, being creative, not necessarily doing what everybody else would do. Yes, there's a time and a place to come back to go boom, tap, and it works great. But it's always about pushing it a little bit, trying to make it a little different, make it, you know, something where the listener goes, wow, that's really cool. Because that's what excites me as a listener. When I listen to something, I go, damn, you know, where did that come from? And that's what I try to give to listeners, because let's face it, as much as I play for myself, if I want to kind of get out of my studio and get out of my little world, it's for the fan. So I'm trying to give them something that they go, yeah, I want to buy this. Yeah, I want to go see this. So it's constantly pushing, but I do play for myself first. And if it excites me, I'm thinking it's going to excite you. So all those guys, just kind of gave me, they had this great technique. That's where a lot of that hi-hat stuff comes from, was Ensley Dunbar in the first 3 Journey albums. I sat there in my bedroom with the turntable, putting the thing on and listening and trying to cop that. And that's where I learned all that, and then obviously Weckl plays like that. Vinny plays like that. Steve Smith, it's 4-limb coordination. And that's what those guys gave me a lot. I took a lot from them. And they're just, those are the best that the world has. There's no question, as far as a all around drummer, not just a rock drummer, not just a jazz drummer, but just great musicians.
Yes, just drummers. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you. But some of them are jam drummers, and you confess that you are not a jam drummer at all. Have you changed your mind? Why not?
No, I because my mind doesn't think that way. I'm pretty well thought out. I'm that guy that in a live performance, I will play the same thing basically every night, because that's what the audience wants to hear. I have in the past, couple of years, sometimes sat down and just not thought about it so much and just started playing. And a couple ideas, little pieces come out. Then I take that and then I go to the chalkboard and start figuring out different ways to go. So to me, it's a little bit more mental than that. I'm not sure if I have the capability between my mind and my body to just start blazing. When I do that, I seem to get stuck in a certain thing that I feel safe in. So to get me out of that, sometimes I have to do a little bit more thinking about it to push that envelope, to try this. Oh, like just yesterday, I was playing something. I said, what would it sound like if you just, instead of going like this, go like this? Just what it will sound like. And sometimes it sounds horrible and it just doesn't work. But sometimes you go, that's not bad, but if I move that, because it's too irritating hearing that all the time. What if I move that back and forth? So I'm thinking, I'm kind of giving myself my own lesson and just trying to push it and teach myself different ideas of where different things go. And then you start to listen. I record and I play back and I go, well, that's really cool, but I hear like a little hi-hat thing in there that I can do too. So that I operate better like that. Maybe I just don't have the confidence to go out and just start screwing around thinking that I'm gonna kind of like fall flat and not have anything. I'd rather have it kind of well thought out.
Yes, to finish the interview, Mark, if you need to sell A through Z, the CD and the band, what would you say in favor of this?
Selling the record is you're going to get 11 hit singles. You're going to get amazing artwork and packaging, probably like hasn't been seen in a long time from bands on this kind of starting out level, without a doubt. You're going to get amazing production and you're going to get a very uplifting experience. This is about good old fashioned rock and roll. This is about feeling good at a concert. This is about connecting with the band. You're also going to get a very powerful live show, because I think this, and I know this will be, bigger, better, faster live. It's going to come across like an arena rock band. It was made that way, and the album is laid out like a concert, in that respect. So you're going to get everything, that's been going on for the last 30 or 40 years, all put in one nice little package.
I knock on wood, maybe with this band, the success will appear finally.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm older, I'm a little smarter. Truthfully, I'm driving the bus, so I get to do the things that I think should be done. We should do this. We do this. Just keep pushing. I mean, that's my nature, to just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. So yeah, we're gonna see. It's you know, we got it to the point where we want it now. When the record comes out August 12th, there'll be another single for Stranded, another video, and I really think the strength is in the record. It's not in the hit singles that we have. I think when people sit down, you know, and whether we roll them out in videos or they buy the record, when they start going song to song, they're going to go, damn, there's no filler. This is like song to song, you know, and that's to me what makes a great record. Think back to all the records that you really, really, really like, that like really stand out. It's the fact that the whole record is great, not like, okay, there's 2 songs and a blues jam, you know. So that's where I think the real strength in this record is. So keep your fingers crossed. I definitely appreciate all the help.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you. I really appreciate your time. We'll talk soon.
Thanks to you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.